My name is Dan. Today we're going to learn about congruent triangles. Okay, I'll pass it on to me.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate.
Have you heard my
All right, congruent triangles. So here we go. What does the word congruent mean in math? Anybody? What's the definition of congruent? Means exactly the same.
Sir, can we watch the video after?
Okay. Thanks, Marty. When did you get here and when did Jeff leave? Okay, so congruent in math means exactly the same. It's not quite the same thing as saying equal. You can have two things be equal but not exactly the same. For example, 7 equals 5 plus 2. Those two things are not exactly the same, right? They have the same amount once you add them up. Congruent means two identical things. So in this case, congruent triangles are talking about triangles that are exactly the same. And you might say, well, that's great. What the hell is the point of this? Right? This doesn't make any sense. Or what do I need this for? But what we're going to look at is we're going to look at how you can prove that two triangles are congruent. Because if you can prove two triangles are congruent, sometimes that means you can transfer some numbers over that you don't have on one of them, but you do have on the other. Right? So if they give you all 3 side lengths for one triangle and another one they don't, but if you can prove that those two triangles are exactly the same, then you can say, well, I know these measurements because, look, I've proven that these two triangles are the same. And this is a little bit about that stuff that comes a little bit later, the deductive reasoning stuff that was maybe a little bit more confusing last week. That's basically what we're doing. We're gonna use this fact that we know about congruent triangles and use this fact that we can prove that two triangles are congruent. Well, we're going to use that in order to maybe transfer some information or do some work with a triangle that we don't have as much information on. So there's 3 ways. 3 ways to prove two triangles are congruent. Okay. Just gonna go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. I'll leave it up here in the corner. Alright. So the first way is probably the most obvious to you. Oh wait, one more thing. I'm gonna add one more thing. When I say they're exactly the same, I should point out what I mean by that. I mean exactly the same, it means that all 3 sides and all 3 angles are the same. Okay, so that was the other piece there. So congruent triangles, exactly the same means that all 3 sides and all 3 angles are the same. So we have 3 ways that we can prove that triangles are congruent. Okay. So the first way is what I would call the one that seems the most obvious. Okay. So way number 1, side, side, side. Okay, short form, S, S, S. Okay. What this means is that if you have 2 triangles, and this triangle has 7, 6, 5 as its side lengths, and this is a 7, a 6, and a 5. Okay. If you have 2 triangles who have 3, so it's all 3 sides in common, you know those two triangles are congruent. Congruent. That's fine, that's great, wonderful. But what does that allow us to do? Well, let's say for instance, in this first triangle, I also had angles. And these won't be necessarily true angles, but we're going to write them in anyway. If I go 60 degrees, that won't work. That won't even begin to make sense. 60 degrees here, 50 degrees here, that makes this 70 degrees here. Okay. If I was given those measurements, 50, 60, and 70, alright, 50, 60, and 70, in this triangle, I know the angles in this triangle. So that does not mean, you have to be careful, make sure you're talking about the same angles, but it means that the angle that's opposite the 5 is 50. Right? It means the angle that's opposite the 7 is 70, and the angle that's opposite the 6 is 60. Right? So I know these angles because I'm able to say for sure these two triangles are congruent, and they gave me the angles inside of this one. Right? It's a very simple example, and it doesn't seem to be too complex, but it is a situation where you will use this later on as kind of a tool to solve things. Okay. Is that alright? Side, side, side?
Yeah.
Okay. The second way, ooh, I'm using blue now. The second way that we're able to prove that two triangles are congruent is the following. It's angle side angle. And we just call this A, S, A. Angle side angle means that if you have two triangles where two angles and a contained side are the same, you can say that those two triangles are congruent. Okay. So, for example, if I have this triangle here, triangle 1, and this triangle here, triangle 2, and I say that this angle here is 70, this angle here is 70, and that this is 2 centimeters, and I say this angle here is 70, and this angle here is 70, and this is 2 centimeters. Right. I've got an angle and another angle that are the same. So these two angles are the same. Poor example, maybe because I used a isosceles triangle. These two don't have to be the same. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change that just to get rid of any kind of confusion. So,
Really can't be.
grab my eraser. I'm going to make it, or it won't let me change it. And make this 60 and make this 60. Okay. You have an angle that's the same, a side that's the same, and another angle that's the same between these two triangles. Okay. The key being that it's two angles and a contained side. So it couldn't be this angle, and this side over here. That wouldn't work. Okay. It must be a side between two angles that are the same between these two triangles. So using that, we could say for sure, if we call this triangle 1, try this triangle 2, we could say triangle 1 and triangle 2 are congruent because of angle, side, angle. Okay, you got to be careful. Make sure that you're dealing with a situation where two angles contain side, all right, and it's the same two angles and the same side length. Okay. Again, had they given me this side as well, and then I'm able to say these two triangles are the same, well then I could say, okay, this side here has to be the same as this side here, once I've proven that the two triangles are congruent. Right? Or this side here has to be the same as this side here. We're looking at the ones that are opposite the same angle. Okay. So is that okay? Is that alright? Okay. Third way that I can prove that two triangles are congruent is side, angle, side. SAS. Okay. This is very similar to your angle side angle, just basically the exact opposite. Alright. So two triangles with an angle contained between two sides which are the same are congruent triangles. Okay, so you have two triangles, angle contained two sides, you have congruent triangles. So if I draw this triangle and this triangle, and I show, okay, I got a 90-degree corner, I got 5 and a 3, 3, 5. I'm going to give you the fact that this one is 7, just for fun. Okay, so I have two triangles here, triangle 1 and triangle 2. Okay. I can say for sure these two triangles are congruent because I have side, contained angle, and another side that are the same. Okay. So I can say using side, angle, side, triangle 1 and triangle 2 are congruent. And I can also say for sure that therefore this side has to be 7. Because, well, it's 7 on this triangle, It's got to be 7 on this triangle too if these two triangles are congruent. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of legwork yourself. Sometimes they might give you, I don't know, these two sides on this triangle and these two on this one, and you might say, well, I can't prove that they're congruent. But if you look, you've got yourself a right angle triangle. So maybe you should calculate this one before you say for sure that they're not. Find as much information about the two triangles as you can, so that you can say for sure, yeah, one way or another, this is congruent or this is not congruent. Okay? I'm going to stop it there.